Today's thought, be specific. Be specific in everything you do. Welcome back to the show.
Welcome to the Family, Health, and Hustle podcast, where sharing our stories, common experiences, and best practices about balancing family, practicing good health, and reaching your goals can help you feel supported, bring clarity, and guide you to the life you want. So if you're ready to challenge yourself, your health, and the hustle around you, then consider this your community. Now, let's welcome your host, Anthony Hernandez.
Hey, thanks for joining me today. As I mentioned in the intro, something has been weighing on my mind, and that is being specific and intentional in your plans and in your direction, where you want to go in life. Doesn't matter what it's about. Be specific. So many of us just put blanket statements on things. Again, I'm like the biggest culprit of this, but I'm going to get so fit. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to be so ripped. Okay. And then when I don't get fit or I don't get ripped, I'm like mad about it. I'm like, my plan didn't work. Wait, what? What plan? There was no plan. How did the plan not work? You were just blindly chasing something. You got to be very specific in your goals. I want to have a six-pack. Okay. That means I have to do very specific things, which, by the way, that's just an example. If you're listening, don't get your hopes up for that one. But the moral of the story is, if I want that, there are very specific exercises I will do. If I just say I want to get fit, okay, what does that mean? Am I chunky fit? Am I lean fit? Am I dad bod fit? Am I shredded? What does that mean? Same thing with goals. Hustle goals. I want to get rich. Okay. What does that mean? What's the plan to get there? What do you see yourself being happy doing to get rich? What does rich mean? Right? I'm listening to a great book right now. Many of you have heard it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I actually had listened to it years ago, back when I was 17. And it didn't really register with me. And I'm re-listening to it now, all these years later, and everything is just like, whoa, I wish I would have got that when I was younger. And one thing he says is there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. Rich is having a lot of money. Wealth is having a lot of time. And I thought that was so, like, that's big. But that just gives you a little insight as to being specific. What is it that you want? Be intentional with your words. Do you want to be rich? Okay, well, anyone. You can be rich with a really cool job that you don't have a life to even spend your money. Do you want to be wealthy? Okay, that's a different plan. With your family. Do you want to have an active family? Okay, active in what? The outdoors, sports, church. You know, what is it that you want your family active in? Do you want to spend time with your family? I'm a big one of this. I want to spend time with my kids. Okay, do I classify sitting on the couch and loafing around and just watching a movie with them as spending quality time? Probably not. And I'm definitely guilty of that. I think maybe we all are, and that's okay. There's a little bit of that. That's okay. But be specific. Maybe I want to be more involved with them. I want to get involved with them in some sports and different things, different activities. So being specific is very important. Now, I have spent the last few shows giving you a little bit of a backstory as to who I am and some of the things that I've done, and I'm going to continue to do that. Today, my intention was, next on my list, was to talk about my professional experience, my experience in business management and different things. So I was thinking about this be specific topic that's been kind of weighing on my mind. And I thought, okay, how does that go with business management? Oh, okay. I know. There are very powerful lessons that I learned managing early on in my career that are guiding principles that I've stuck with throughout any career I've tried or any job or anything I've done. And that actually goes along perfectly with being specific. And well, let me just tell you a little bit about my business management experience. So first job was at a pizza place. Second job was at a pizza place. And then I worked at a gym, and the manager didn't even pay attention to like what I asked for, like schedule wise, things like that. Like she was like, yeah, for sure. And I ended up working super late nights. I was still in high school. I had early morning classes. Like it was a mess. After all of that, a bunch of cruddy jobs. My parents decided to open up a restaurant. And that was my first taste at being a manager. And as I mentioned in the past, I wasn't super involved in the financials or anything. In fact, I wasn't at all. I was just involved in the managing of my shift. And I learned a lot. I learned about having some tough conversations. You know, I mean, nothing's tougher than sitting down with someone who works with you and talking about maybe the way that they're dressed. Like, hey, I understand we all come from different areas of life, but this is some of your clothing's maybe a little dirty. Let's get you a new uniform or a new shirt. I'll help out with that. Or, hey, when you come in here, let's talk a little bit about hygiene. Some very tough conversations that ultimately always ended pleasantly and positively. But that was very difficult for me at the time. I try to be a very upfront person and straightforward, but even those conversations, when you're telling someone, hey, you know, we got to have some deodorant or things like that. I mean, that is difficult for both of us, not just that person because they don't know, right? But also me having to, sit them down and have that conversation. So I learned a lot of those experiences. After that, I got to, as I mentioned, go be a missionary for a couple years. And at a certain point in the mission experience, I got to be in a leadership capacity and got to experience organizing things, communicating things with other people on essentially my team. And nothing too crazy, but I managed a couple financial things, a couple things in regards to providing supplies for members of the team that are out in different areas, things like that. Great experience. Had its own challenges. And then after that, I came home, I worked at Chili's. That's where I met my honey bae, as you heard last week. And from there, I moved to another restaurant that was growing very quickly and became a shift manager. Loved it. Loved every minute of it. It was very fun, very physically very engaging and active. Like you had to be up and going every day. And then from there, I got promoted to my own restaurant. And then that's where I really started to learn things. Because my first restaurant that I was assigned to, I was just trying to be everyone's friend. And I was letting everyone do whatever they wanted. And then I would get frustrated at certain things and get mad. And then there would just be some clashes between myself and a team member or two team members, or, I would think everything's good, but a team member's frustrated at me or whatever. And it was a learning experience. But here's the best part. And this kind of goes along with the being specific. At that point, I learned about setting proper expectations, being specific with my team, being specific with our goals, being specific with what I expect of them. And that, I think, goes perfectly in line with being specific. Now, two different fronts there. I got the one front, which is me doing the management gig, setting up those expectations. But what that did is it allowed tough conversations to be so much easier to address. Prior to that, I was like, how do I do this? Like, if I had to let someone go, which no one wants to do, it was just like destroying me inside. Like, no. But when I had set those expectations, it was a very clear, here's the check boxes. If we're not delivering on the thing that I set from day one, then you're not fulfilling your part of the bargain. Or maybe I wasn't fulfilling part of my bargain. But setting those expectations on day one allowed us to have those touch points, those conversations throughout our teamwork. And again, either maybe there were some things I wasn't fulfilling my end of the bargain or something where someone else wasn't fulfilling their end of the bargain. But there was no frustration or anger towards each other in regards to why aren't they doing this or why aren't they doing that? I mean, there were still tough conversations of, hey, you aren't doing this. It's clear. But it just took so much away from it. And that was because we all knew what we were supposed to do. And we all knew if we weren't doing it. That's the big thing. Management, setting clear expectations. In your personal goals in life, set your own clear expectations. If you want a certain body or a certain fitness, you want to live a certain lifestyle, what does that look like? Write it down. We've talked about that, how important it is to write things down. Write down what that expectation is. You expect to go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week. Okay. Which days? It's okay to switch them up every once in a while, but be specific. Are we thinking Monday through Saturday? But we might miss Saturday. Maybe we hit up a Sunday one day, or whatever your schedule is. Like, be very specific so that you can look back and hold yourself accountable to it, and you can have an honest conversation. If I set a goal of going to the gym 5 to 6 days a week, it is clear when I look back on my week if I did that. It's a yes or a no. That's it. I have a goal right now that I set at the beginning of the year, and I am failing it. I have 2 goals, actually, that I'm failing. The first one is I said I would stretch every night before I go to bed. And by the way, I need this. For some reason, like within the last several months, my body just was like, okay, now it's time for your back to start hurting. And I was like, what? Why does my back always hurt? But when I stretch, and when I stretch consistently for a few days, it feels better. So I set that goal. Okay, I'll do that. Not doing it. Back's always hurting. I have 2 clear indicators. I can look back at my week and say, I stretched one day and it was in the morning. And B, also my back hurts. So that is a clear indicator that I am failing to do that thing. The second goal that I'm failing, again, there's no sugarcoating it. You're doing it or you're not doing it. My goal is to do a video journal each night. I am horrible at writing a journal. I have tried. I have done a few months consistently, but my arm gets tired and I use excuses to not sit down and have some quiet time, or the other thing is I just miss so many of the cool details that may have happened in a story because I'm just tired of writing. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a video journal. I am going to do a video journal every single night before I go to bed. It's March 19th. I have done maybe a couple, if that. That is a clear indication. I look back at my week. I have it on my phone. I'm doing it on my phone. I can look back and be like, yeah, I'm failing. So I need to have a little talk with myself. Don't I really want this goal? Okay, then I really need to make an effort. Or maybe the goal's not in alignment with something that's evolved over the course of the last several months, right? I had a goal for a while. There was a sales job that I was really excited about. And I wanted it to work. I wanted it to make $1 gazillion. And I put it in my goal sheet. I'm going to make $1 gazillion in this sales. I'm going to be making this much a month. It did not work. It fell flat. But for a couple weeks, I was still saying it and reviewing it in my goals. And finally, I'm like, what am I doing? I have no intention of doing this anymore. Crossed it out. Wrote another goal at the bottom. Okay, this is what I want to do now. Be very specific with what you want to do. In your home, be very specific. I'm not preaching at you. I'm saying this for my own sanity. I need to be very specific. I need to set proper expectations. When I do, I can easily measure my success, and it feels good. Or it doesn't feel good, but you can have that conversation correctly. If you have people in your life that you're working with, maybe you are a manager. Maybe you are doing a small business or managing a sports team, or, you're the water boy for the baseball team. It doesn't matter, but set proper expectations there. Set proper boundaries, and everyone should know what they need to do. I promise you that will make such a big difference. I have seen that in my life, that it will make such a big difference. The other thing about being specific, I had mentioned that I'm listening to that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, by Robert Kiyosaki. And he talks a lot about that, about being specific in certain situations. For instance, he talks about how when you want to purchase a luxury item, you should basically counteract that with an asset. You should invest in an asset that pays for the luxury item. Well, you should be specific in your finances how you're going to pay for that item. I don't just throw it on a credit card and say, I'll deal with it later, I'll pay it off when I have some money, which, by the way, ding, 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 Guilty of doing that. Definitely. We'll put it on here. We'll get rich in a few months. We'll pay it off, right? This expense, shing, shing, swipe. We'll be making $1,000 and an extra $1,000 next weekend or whatever. We'll pay it off or whatever. And then what do you know? Next thing, you are stuck in paying off those expenses, or you're stuck in those unnecessary liabilities. So I really have been enjoying the book that he wrote, and I've been listening to it at the gym. And again, I just feel like there's so much of that we can apply in every aspect of our life. Be specific. There is power in planning. If you want to do something over here, identify things that maybe are counterweights to that will help you accomplish that, or that are part of the process that will help you accomplish that. Do that in your own life, do that in the lives of others around you, and it'll be so much easier to guide your journey and to follow that path. So I hope today hasn't been too preachy, but that's something that's been on my mind. I have a list of things I want to talk to you guys about, mostly a big list of just telling you a little bit about me. In between these interviews that we're doing with folks, there's a lot to know about where I'm coming from and some of my experiences. And like I said, today I was just going to talk about management and here's everything I've learned and all this stuff, but it's been weighing on my mind of just be specific, be intentional. And I was like, why is this weighing on my mind so much? What experiences have I had that would contribute to those thoughts? And perfect timing, but the management stuff kind of fit in there too. And as I looked over my notes for that and wanting to share certain things, I said, that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned in my career. The biggest one, bar none. Set proper expectations. Be specific with those expectations. And apply that same principle to every aspect of life. I promise it will make you happier. Might take a little bit of work up front. You have to sit down and really get to know yourself and get to not just get to know yourself, but commit to yourself. You think it's hard to commit to someone else? Oof. It's really hard to commit to yourself when you have the plan written out. It's easy, again, just to throw out a blanket thing. But when you have a plan in front of you and you're like, I got to commit to this, you're going to find that there's even some hesitation there, because you might know you're not going to do it, or you don't have an intention of doing it. And then that brings in accountability partners and the whole shebang, and we can talk more about that another time. But yes, my thoughts today are just be specific, be intentional with everything that you do. And I'm telling you, I'm singing it. Setting those goals and being specific with those goals are just, it'll change your life. I promise you it'll change your life. It is, it's akin to the whole manifesting. People will talk about manifesting, and I've mentioned this before, where it's like a little bit of juju stuff going on. No, when you are specific and you put a specific plan down and you review it often and you align your life with it, magic happens. That's what manifesting is, I believe. Magic happens. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you found value in this episode, I know I rambled on a little bit, but if there's some nuggets in there, please share it with a friend, someone that would also enjoy this show, that would enjoy being a part of this community. If you have examples of being specific in your goals and how you've accomplished it, maybe a year that you didn't have goals, or you had a blanket goal versus when you had a very specific goal and a specific plan, I would love to hear those stories. Please send me an email, Anthony@familyhealthandhustle.com. Again, that's Anthony@familyhealthandhustle.com. Send me that story. I would love to share it with the community so we can all learn from these things. Or maybe I'm crazy and all this stuff is silly and you've had totally opposite experiences. Tell me, send it to me. I think we're going to have more in common than not, but maybe there's something totally crazy that I missed that I need to learn from. Send me your stories. Thanks so much for being here. I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for joining in today because pursuing a balance between family, health, and hustle, it can feel a little wacky sometimes. So we need to learn from each other. And with a simple click to subscribe, we'll invite you back to our next episode. In the meantime, download our free ebook, 6 Secrets for Success, at familyhealthandhustle.com. And remember, we're on this journey together.